Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So look, as I've been saying, they're going to try everything they can possibly do to derail this infrastructure bill. And one of the things being thrown out right now is this SALT, the state and local tax issue that they're trying to divide Democrats on. And I said, look, for me, I don't really care about it. I think it's okay where it's at. We could do some adjustments so it doesn't hit working people in New York and California and New Jersey. But when you're talking about some of the people at the top end, you're missing me. But some of those working class folks in New York City, we can make some adjustments to it. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the infrastructure plan and, how we're going to get this stuff through. I've got Michigan Representative Andy Levin to come talk with us. Andy's on the Education and Labor Committee, also the House Foreign Relations Committee. Andy, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, it's great to be with you, Rick.
So, I'm looking at yesterday's speech, historic moment in my view. What I'm not shocked at is the number of people who were for a $2 trillion infrastructure plan before they were against it.
Yeah, this is something that we just must do if we want to have people employed in this country, if we want to compete with China, if, we want to be effective. It's as if somebody had a house and they're like against having a driveway and stairs. It's like you have to take care of your property. We haven't been doing it for decades. And now we can put a lot of people to work in great jobs. So let's go. I'm proud of our president and ready to move.
Yeah, I see. I'm of the mindset. I would have liked to have been a little bit bigger, but you know what? Yeah. I'm happy with it. This is a good start. It's a lot better than we've done over the last, as you said, a couple of decades. And we've got so much that needs to be done. And especially now coming out of this pandemic, if we can whip this would be a great boost to move the economy forward in the aftermath.
No doubt. I'm with you 100%. Elizabeth Warren and I put out a proposal for $1.5 trillion of federal procurement over the next 10 years to green the economy and put a lot of people to work. We've got an electrification bill, the Build Green Act. I've got my EV Freedom Act. To put a national network of high-speed chargers throughout the highway system. This is a moment when we're facing an unprecedented multitude of crises. And, it's interesting that I hear that the president's been sort of studying up on FDR. I'll tell you, Rick, one thing he's taken from FDR, those of us who are progressives, they are not telling us to shut up. They're not asking us, please get in line. I was at the White House last week with 3 of my progressive colleagues. And the chief of staff said, we want your partnership. We want you to speak your mind. And I think they see that having a movement to demand workers' freedom to form unions, to demand $15 an hour, to demand infrastructure in every sense of, give me broadband. Don't just talk about roads, bridges, and sewers. We need all that, but we need broadband. We need offshore wind. We need solar. We need geothermal. We need battery storage. We need to onshore manufacturing again, so let's go. Let's put people to work in this country.
No, I'm right there with you. But here's the thing. I look at someone like McConnell. I look at the Republicans right now. And I think, I remember a time when infrastructure was nonpartisan, not bipartisan. It was nonpartisan. Yeah. You guys would go, you would get your projects to bring home. You had ribbon cuttings. It was great. We got roads paved. We got potholes fixed. It was the golden era of Congress. When did infrastructure become now a highly partisan issue?
I get right now everything is, and it's so sad because it's just as you say. If there's any definition of bringing home the bacon, it's about getting projects done in your district, whether it's a new train station or getting, the lead lines fixed. He's saying he's going to get rid of lead service lines altogether. That's amazing. Everybody should be jumping for joy there. But you're right. They've made it a partisan issue. And you look at the fresh polls out, it is wildly popular, right?
No, and I've said from the beginning, I think, again, this is political because I think what the Republicans understand is once people start getting jobs and those jobs are good union jobs with the kind of wages and benefits that union workers earn, they tend to be a little bit happier. They can pay their bills, put a roof over their head, start planning for the future, maybe kids going to college, maybe stuff like that. And they tend not to vote for people who are against that kind of stuff. And I got to tell you, I think that's a big component of this.
No question. I mean, what I've been saying for a long time is I'm tired of making speeches about all the things we want. People don't really care about all the niceties of weird Senate processes. They want their $15. They want their freedom to form a union. They want their good job with good benefits, good wages, and a dignified retirement. That's really all people want. And if we deliver it to them, you're right, they'll vote for us because, and a lot of these divisive things, we'll be able to overcome. Because we got to serve the whole working class, black, white, brown, Native American, everybody, Asian American, gay, straight, native born, immigrant. Let's go. Workers. We're all workers. Give people a good job.
Well, and this is what I say. I think the unions have done a good job over the last couple of decades. My contract doesn't say the white guy makes this much and the black guy makes this much and the woman makes this much. It says the person doing this job makes this much. It's very clear. It's cut and dry. It's in black and white. You can't argue it. Which is why I'm a big supporter of unions. I think a lot of our problems could be solved with workers having contracts, the transparency that comes with it, the empowerment that comes with a union contract.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, if you look at the difference between women and men, between black workers and white workers and Latinx workers, they're much lower when workers have unions. And it's all transparent. Like you say, everybody has a contract. It's the same contract for everybody. Equal pay for equal work becomes a reality when you're a Teamster or a machinist or a service employee or whatever union you might be in. So, let's just give workers the freedom to form unions. This struggle in Bessemer has been amazing, Rick, in terms of, I've never seen something. It's like a global cause celeb. People, the Japanese press and the Turkish press are covering this live. I mean, they don't know what to do because it's a slow process now to count the votes.
Right.
They counted, and the press is like calling me. I say, I got nothing to say.
Yeah, I'm waiting like everybody else. Absolutely. Yeah. But you know what I think? I think this has been a good thing. I think watching what happened in Alabama, I think a lot of people weren't aware of how horrible conditions are when people try to exercise their rights, which is why we need something like the PRO Act, which is why I was a big supporter of the Employee Free Choice Act, even though I didn't think that went far enough back during the Obama term. Something George Miller thought that George W. Bush would sign. We didn't even get that. So what do you think the chances are of getting something like the PRO Act pushed through? I know it's passed the House, and I know the Senate is where good ideas go to die, but what do you think the chances of that being left in when they move the final infrastructure plan?
I mean, let's take a broader look, right? Jimmy Carter tried to pass labor law reform. 2 Democratic senators from Arkansas refused to vote for it. It died. Bill Clinton didn't even try. He had a blue ribbon commission to study it. That was bad news for the working class. It was good news for me personally because I got to be the staff attorney for that commission, and I learned a lot. But and then Barack Obama, the Employee Free Choice Act. How much political capital did he really put into that? So we have not passed any labor law reform that makes it easier for workers in the private sector to form a union or bargain collectively since the National Labor Relations Act itself in 1935.
Right.
I mean, that's a shameful thing for our country. And meanwhile, there's been death by 1,000 cuts. Federal laws passed, state laws passed, federal court decisions, state court decisions, administrative actions on both levels that chip away at workers, right? Oh, you're an independent contractor. You're a temp worker. You don't have this right. Let's take some rights away from undocumented workers. Right to freeload and, state after state building, and to the point where lots of workers aren't even covered by anything. And the NLRA doesn't have any teeth anyway. So we've got to pass the PRO Act if we want to rebuild the middle class in this country. There's no 2 ways about it. We cannot deal with wealth and income inequality unless workers have these powers that the PRO Act would give them. And I think it's going to take a movement, dude. I don't think just us having, persuasive talk in the halls of Congress is going to do it. I would like to think that, and I really think Joe Biden is more committed to this than any president in modern times. So that's awesome.
Yep.
But corporate America, this is the hill they will die on. I mean, because they know that if workers have more voice and power in society, everything else gets better, right? I mean, then workers vote for candidates that will support them. Workers get their own education system going to figure out which candidates actually advance their interests. Then they vote for those people. With all the talk of union members voting for Trump, it's true, too many did, no question. But you name a demographic, and I've got the data that shows that that union members in that demographic voted less for Trump than non-union, right? Even white men, white male non-union voted for Trump more than white male union members. Same for every category. So we've got to, win this, but it's going to be a battle.
No, I'm with you. But, I said, all along, Trump was talking the talk of the labor movement at the time. We've got to do something about trade. We've got to take on China. We've got to rebuild manufacturing. We've got to rebuild infrastructure. And this is something that I think Biden is doing in this infrastructure bill. We're going to rebuild manufacturing by bringing some jobs back to rebuild our infrastructure. And those are going to be union jobs. And it's going to be a lot of in rural communities, those communities that have been left behind, where opioid addiction has taken over, where crumbling main streets have been the norm. And it's going to give people, I hope, massive investment, an opportunity to rebuild that American dream, that ideal of if I work hard and play by the rules, I'm going to get ahead.
100%. It's just what has to happen. And it's absolutely what he's trying to get done.
Right.
And, it's great to be rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, but here's where my problem with Democrats is. I want Democrats, guys like you, who roll up your little digits and get in there, throw punches. I want the whole party throwing in that same direction, because for too long we've had too many corporate Democrats who have sold the working class out. My fear is the PRO Act is the first thing that gets thrown out of this to make, who knows? I'm not going to pick any senators out right now, but to make somebody happy to appease them. And that's what, like the $15 an hour minimum wage got thrown out. That's my fear.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And that's why people have to hit the streets. That's why people have to hit the phones. I mean, and that's why Bessemer is so important, because win or lose, it has changed the dynamic. I mean, a loss shows that we've got to pass this, or else there's no hope. I mean, the biggest employer in this country in the private sector, Walmart, 1.3 million workers, not exactly the greatest job in the world. And how many are union members? Zero out of 1.3 million. Amazon, no union members in the US. This would be the first group to form a union. So, it shows it. And if they win, I tell you what, Rick, it's almost like the days in the 30s before the Wagner Act was passed, with the first stirrings of what became the CIO.
Yep.
And they organized and they sort of put pressure for change. I see workers organizing like on digital media. People are organizing. I see people organizing in unusual parts of the economy. And look, everybody knows. Don't tell me Bezos was like, oh, you make $15 an hour. Shut up and stop complaining. Everybody has health insurance, right? It's like, dude, you know what? This is warehousing. $15 an hour isn't such a great wage here. And anyway, I'm a human being. Like, I have to pee sometimes.
Yeah.
I have to eat sometimes.
Here's a nice bottle.
I mean, when they said, oh, get real, nobody pees in a bottle at Amazon. Did you see the outpouring, pun intended, I guess, of workers just stepping forward and saying, what is this guy talking about? Every driver has a bottle in their truck. Everybody pees. And that woman said, I use a Shiwi.
Yeah. No. And look, they actually put out a memo saying stop dumping in the bag.
Right.
So it's not even just number one. They're doing two too.
Don't leave your full pee jar in the truck at the end of your shift. I mean, come on.
No, it's crazy, and I'm hoping that that the light that was shed on that is going to give us some movement forward. Now, Marty Walsh, the new labor secretary, I'm hoping he's going to wield some power. Got to be honest, you were my second choice for that job. My first choice we're going to have on a little bit later, Sarah Nelson, president of the Association of Flight Attendants. But I think Marty Walsh is a good guy for it. I want to get your impression.
Well, I didn't know Marty Walsh before, but when, once he was nominated, I called him right up and I said, I'm behind you 100%, whatever you need. I think he seems like a great guy, very straightforward. I think he's going to be, a great ambassador for the president and a real, champion for workers, and that workers have to be at the center of all policy decisions.
Now, how much power is he going to be able to wield, though, given the fact that our labor laws are so badly broken, and if we don't get the PRO Act, how much can he do, do you think?
Well, one of the ironies is that, and this was when they were talking about me. I mean, we were, my thing to them was, look, we have a weird system in this country. The labor laws that govern all private sector workers, namely the National Labor Relations Act and the Railway Labor Act, those laws are run and enforced by quasi-judicial agencies that are not political. So the president doesn't really have a political lieutenant. So I was saying the Secretary of Labor needs to, be seen as a real lieutenant to transform our laws on those issues. The labor secretary is more over job training, pensions, international labor standards, wage and hour, all super important stuff, So I do hope that Marty steps up and says, you know what, I'm going to be the president's champion on workers' rights in terms of collective bargaining, not just the employment law stuff. But I think he'll do a great job.
Yeah, I hope so too. But the reality is I want the Labor Department to move in promoting people's right to join and form unions, and I want a National Labor Relations Board that's going to enforce those rights and protect people. And we got to figure out how to make this a lot shorter than what we saw happen in Bessemer.
100%. I mean, the PRO Act would get the employer out as a party. The employer would no longer be a party to the election. The workers would decide where to have the election. Amazon tried to force them to have an in-person election in the middle of a COVID hotspot. How outrageous was that? So that would be up to the workers. The timeline for the election would be a lot faster. By the way, there's also a timeline for first contracts. Within about 6 months, workers would have a first contract. That's revolutionary because in almost half the cases, when workers go through all the hell of forming a union under the current law, they never get a first contract. Yeah. And if you never get a contract, you don't really have the fruit of your labor there. So that's huge. Real financial penalties, both for the company and for the individual corporate officers. And even more important than penalizing them, if they fire Rick Smith because he was a leader of the union drive, the NLRB can put Rick right back on the job. And that is, they don't really fire you because they care about you. They're trying to scare all your brothers and sisters.
The chilling effect. You're spot on, right? Which is why we need this to happen and we need this to get pushed through. Rep. Levin, I appreciate you taking some time for us. Great talking with you. I hope you'll come back and talk to us again.
Absolutely. Have a good evening. Take care.
Great stuff, Representative Andy Levin. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.